Hello, and welcome back to Full Time. I am Tamerra Griffin, and I don't know about you, but after this summer of soccer, with respect, of course, to Ecuador, Copa America, technically it's not summer for them, but I am exhausted. I actually think I'm just going to normalize drinking my coffee through this episode, but we're going to bring some back to school energy. I don't know, summer is not quite over yet, but typically during this time of the year, it's time to start dusting off the textbooks, resharpening the pencils, reviewing the notes, to get ready for the second half of the year. And by year, I mean NWSL season. That's what this episode is going to be about. Now that Euros are over, now that WAFCON is over, now that Copa is almost over, we got some league stuff to continue. So we are going to be picking up where we left off. If you haven't done the summer reading, don't worry, we got you. We're going to be reviewing some of the big summer signings and what that might mean for the teams that they are now probably practicing with, getting ready to start the second half of this season, reviewing who's at the top of the table and might stay there, middle of the table, who might be making some moves in either direction, and who might be breaking their way into the playoffs in the second half of the season. Of course, I can't do this on my own. I am joined by my co-host, Meg Linehan. Meg, I have to say, I was halfway prepared for you to show up to this episode recording with green hair, because you have been all about the Vermont green lately.
If you're watching the episode, I have my wildflower kit on. It has been, we're talking about summer of soccer, and we are very much in a summer of soccer here in Burlington, Vermont. Vermont is hosting the USL2 final between the Green and Ballard FC, which also, P.S. investor Lou Barnes from Seattle Reign. So there is a little bit,
NWSL tie-in.
Yeah, sure. a little NWSL tie-in. Obviously, Sam Mewis over here. So, yeah, it's been, this team has tested my heart and my constitution every single game. They've either been down goals. The national semifinal, where they advanced to the final, it was a 0-0 draw. It took penalties to win. Two big it's just also the summer of penalties, right?
Oh my God.
And it was also the same day as the Euros final. So I had lived through England, Spain, and then got in the car to go to Virtue Fields. And I was just like, oh, okay, so I get to do this all over again and suffer.
Right.
And yeah, it was great. It's just been such a lovely time too. The community here has been so great. And yeah, we've got some fun stuff planned for the final. But I just, everybody's sending good vibes on Saturday night, because I'm going to be a disaster.
You're going to be going through it. Okay, we'll put a calendar reminder to send you those good vibes. But yeah, I mean, who would have thought that you and the rest of the Vermont Green community would have so much in common with Lioness fans over the weekend?
Totally, the vibes were almost exactly the same too, just in terms of runs of these improbable victories coming back down
9
from
Lives FC.
Totally. So there has been a real parallel of me watching England and then being like, wait a minute, the same thing's happening in my backyard. So producer Theo and I have been living the same life, just in
Yes.
two very different levels this summer.
There's been a lot of pre-production calls with raspy voices, a bit of puffy eye bags, but
a little
totally
bit of
worth
hangover, just that's been the summer vibe, but it's all good. It's all good. That's why we do it.
Exactly. I mean, we can never actually complain about this, because we're living the dream. And I mean, you and the Lioness fans are getting the results. So if things had ended differently, this call might sound a little different.
For one more. We got one more up here in Vermont, but I am kind of glad. It's been really funny, because everybody's like, when is your baby due? And I'm like, after the season.
So many big things happening.
So it has been, a very busy summer up here. But we got to talk about the Euros final, because...
Yes. Personally, I'm still recovering. I'm still in New York.
I also have my coffee ready to go.
This is just where we're at. I am a big proponent of transparency. I ended up going to, shout out Smithfield Hall in Flatiron in Manhattan. They showed both WAFCON on Saturday and the Euros on Sunday. So
Classic
shout out
spot.
to them. Let's normalize this. Great breakfast burritos. That is one of my main metrics for an honorable institution. But at the Euros, it was packed with, I don't think I saw a single Spanish fan. It was heavily England. And so, of course, when they went down in the beginning, you could hear a pin drop through the whole place. And just being able to ride that emotional roller coaster with them was incredible. I took video of the crowd watching Chloe Kelly's penalty, and just the eruption of emotion, of relief, of joy was so cool to see, especially in a packed bar that was not a small one. But what a game.
Smithfield, pretty big. It was such a good game, and I think there was drama for every part of it. The penalties, obviously, it was so fitting that this final went to penalties, right? After all of these things. I also, can we just take a beat here and talk about Lucy Bronze playing on a broken tibia 4 months? As someone who has broken a tibia, though I'm assuming a lot worse than she actually did, it is unimaginable to me that she played on a broken tibia.
It's really giving, if she wanted to retire in the NWSL, I think that piece of lore would really have a home in this league. I know this is supposed to be an NWSL episode, so forgive the bridge.
Yeah.
But I mean, even before she revealed that, I was still stuck on the fact that she was wrapping her thigh in extra time. That's the image I'm never going to get out of my head from this Euros. I mean, just the savagery of it, the determination of it. She's not young. She is still and playing full 90 games on
a broken tibia. How?
Truly.
Physically how? Yeah. Just
and provided excellent quotes. It's painful, but I'm gonna party. Is that not the vibe of this whole summer?
It's just Millennium Core, it's great. So
completely.
Yeah.
And Meg, I'm curious your thoughts. I mean, England now have back-to-back European championships. This, of course, was always going to be a huge game, a rematch of the 2023 World Cup final, which obviously went to Spain. What do you think this says about any sort of dynasty or legacy that the Lionesses are building?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is obviously. I mean, I just feel like I've seen so much stuff about England and the ban from women playing football there, right? So I think there is still that grappling with this legacy. And I think the encouraging thing that I've seen in terms of England is that the justification era for women's football, I think, is done, right? And I think we all look to the legacy of the last Euros and what it could do for England, right? We viewed it as kind of you've got your 99 moment, right? You've got a tournament on home soil, it super matters, and now to cement that with a back-to-back victory. But I think there's also a part of me that really likes last World Cup winners, Spain, Olympic winners, US, Euros, England. So we do have... And Nigeria, right, with WAFCON. So,
Big Four.
I think we're seeing this kind of pattern now where it's a perfect setup going into 2027, where you've got especially that trio of England, Spain, US, gunning for the top prize in 2027, and all having and feeling like they've got momentum going into it. And that, to me, when I was really thinking through I did kind of want England to pull through in the end, because I think it gives us such a better narrative heading into 2027 of these three kind of big women's football superpowers heading to Brazil. Obviously, we don't know the results yet from Copa America Femenina, but Brazil cruised through that semifinal against Uruguay, right? And so if Brazil are coming off a Copa win, everybody that you expect to be at full power is going to be at full power. And how could you not want that for the 2027 World Cup?
I mean, I'm fired up just hearing that little manifesto. I got goosebumps. Unfortunately, I'm caffeinated, or, for better or worse, depending on your vibe right now as you're listening. But yes, I love that. And I mean, let's not forget, Nigeria almost beat England at the World Cup. They took it to penalties. Yeah. Colombia had an incredible World Cup run. Right. Brazil recently beat the U.S. women's national team earlier this year in a friendly. All five
we're prep for Super Smash Brothers era of the women's world. Everybody's just gonna be beating the stuffing out of each other. We'll keep it family friendly.
You can use your imagination.
I like it. I'm just so amped now for this World Cup and what this could mean in terms of I just think it's going to be, we talk about parity at the World Cup all the time and what these results are going to look like. But for me right now, from a top team perspective, there are no guarantees. whatsoever, and that makes it so much more exciting.
100%. I mean, that was one of the things that inspired me to start writing about women's soccer, was the fact that nothing was predictable anymore. And journalistically, that's when you get the most interesting stories. So I'm 100% there with you. I love that all of these continental tournaments are getting more attention so that we can even be connecting dots like this and having these kinds of conversations. But we need to talk about England, because they had an epic championship parade celebration with one of my favorite artists making an appearance, the FOMO. I mean, of course, I've been feeling FOMO all month in Switzerland and Morocco and Ecuador. Particular kind of FOMO when you mention Burna Boy.
I have watched that clip of Sarina Wiegman losing her mind.
Who would have
in double digits? Like, in no universe, I think, could any of us ever predicted that, like, that would be
a top artist of hers.
It's perfect. It makes me, like, I already had a very healthy amount of respect for her, but now I'm like, oh, so you're cool like that?
Exactly. Nothing will endear me to someone more than knowing they have range, you know? Like, you know, she has her crisp white T-shirts. She was so smartly dressed at the final. And to know that, like, in her AirPods that she was getting off the bus was probably some Last by Burna Boy. Like, say less, Sarina, say less. But let's hear from someone who was actually at the parade, our colleague Charlotte Harpur, who, bless her, I hope that she is resting, sipping some tea.
About raspy voices.
Right. What a
We're all going through it.
Truly. Let's hear from Charlotte, who was at the parade, so that we can get more details about what it was like.
The Lionesses had a hero's welcome at Buckingham Palace as 65,000 fans came out to celebrate them.
We didn't think we'd see it in our generation last time, let alone twice in a row.
So the last time they won it, they inspired my daughter so much she got into football, and since then she's been on a real journey, so we just had to be here.
These are the most successful team in England, full stop, men or women, so why should we not celebrate that?
It was a show worthy of champions and filled with crowd pleasers. Sweet Caroline, Chloe Kelly swearing on live TV, even Heather Small from M People. But the real highlight of the show was when host Alex Scott told Sarina Wiegman that her favourite artist was there too. Burna Boy and Wiegman serenaded the crowd, and I think it's fair to say the England manager has gone up even higher in everyone's estimations. I've never seen her so shocked, excited, and loving being the centre of attention. Not that she knew it, she was in her own little world, having the time of her life. Overall, this was an afternoon of joy that cemented the Lionesses' status and made clear that this is a nation that has fully embraced women's football. We usually see such crowds for the royal family. The Lionesses are royalty in their own right. The only task now is to carry on this momentum into the domestic season, with the Women's Super League starting in September.
It's really special, you know, seeing how far the women's game has come over the last 10 years has been phenomenal.
All right. Now, of course, like any major tournament, it hasn't all been roses and flowers. There were some controversies and some difficult truths that we had to confront. Jess Carter of Gotham FC and, of course, England revealed in the middle of the tournament that since the beginning of the Euros, she had been targeted by racist abuse online. And personally, it's hard for me to separate that one from the way she performed throughout the Euros. I mean, she had some excellent games and she had some games that she struggled. But also, Meg, this gives a lot of context to the fact that Jess did not remain in Europe for the celebrations and actually but came back to Gotham pretty quickly to rejoin the team.
Yes, and also posted, you know, that it was her decision to go back to Gotham right off the bat. And so I think that was maybe a hopefully eye-opening thing for some folks who, you know, were expecting her at the parade. And just also, like, the cognitive dissonance that probably would have been happening of people who had been hurling racist abuse at her and then would have been cheering for her and the team.
Right.
In general, like, I think it's super understandable that she didn't even want to, like, deal with that, right? And 100%. So there's that piece of it. But I think what we have seen, and Sarina Med up in Canada wrote a great column of this, of like, we have to kind of confront that there is now this dark side to the popularity of the game. This is also a story that I've been thinking about, how we start really grappling with this, because also there's another piece of this too, of the media then goes to people of color and is like, hi, you should talk about this. And it's like, no. It's not their responsibility to solve this or talk about this. Like, this has to be something that we grapple with from a structural standpoint, from a league standpoint, from a, the NWSL Players Association, Gotham, Lionesses, everybody kind of stood up and rallied around her in a way that was much faster and clearer than, my brain immediately goes back to Barbara Banda and that situation, right? Yep. And so I think hopefully we're getting better at the rally and protect after the fact, but now it's the how do you prevent and how do you insulate players from receiving this hate in the first place. And this is also a big social media question, right? There's not a good answer just because social media right now is not generally a pleasant place to be anymore, especially if you have a large amount of followers or just you are a public figure. But this is now, I think, the next challenge is how do you approach it from a proactive structural piece? But I am glad that Jess Carter felt that she had a path of I can go back to Gotham, which is a place where I feel comfortable and settle back into the NWSL season.
I think that whole story is emblematic of, as you've said, much deeper, more systemic issues within women's soccer that we are going to be forced to confront, those of us who have not already, and those of us who have not been living it. So it's not even a matter of confrontation, it's a matter of lived experience and reality. Right. But it was cool to see players like Lucy Bronze, Alex Greenwood during the tournament speaking out against this. Yeah. I personally hope that when the WSL season starts again, we see more action than just taking a knee. Which we already saw change during the Euros. What does action look like? Even if it's not, marching through the streets, what does allyship look like? What does proactive, changes, what does that look like? And what does systemic, sustainable change look like? I think these are all really important questions that we all need to be asking ourselves. And like you said, those questions should not be directed at the same people in equal measure because, like I said, some of us, it's not a problem to be solved. It's a matter of survival.
Yep.
Okay, we also got to talk about WAFCON. I watched that also at the Smithfield. Shout out Smithfield. And shout out to, I won't name him, but I was there watching with the Nigerian fan who was so happy that they won, Meg. He cried. Tears of joy when they were on the medal podium. It was
This is
beautiful.
what it's about. This is what it's about.
Truly. So. They completed Mission X, 10 continental titles now since the history of the tournament. Yep. Huge. I mean, name another team with a similar dynasty. It was so important, I think, for Nigeria to accomplish this. Of course, you've got players like Asisat Oshuala, Michelle Alozie in the NWSL, not to mention all of the others who play across the diaspora in various leagues. I'm excited to see how the NWSL receives them. The AFC, Houston Dash, they both did great throughout the tournament. So major shout out to them. And quick reminder that due to things like COVID, the Olympics, and honestly, Confederation of African Football not always having their you-know-what together, we are getting another AFCON next summer in 2026 so they can realign their timeline. So I love that we're not even going to have to wait that long before we get another one of those tournaments. It will be in Morocco again. Let's get comfortable with Morocco. I wrote a piece on that at The Athletic about what that might mean.
Definitely worth a read. I do. Nigeria coming back from 2 goals down. Again, you want to talk about the summer of just never say die football. Just an incredible time. Watching that, I was watching that on my phone and just losing my mind and being okay, sorry to everyone around me. Things are happening. It's, and now we get to wait and see what comes out of, these 2 powerhouses in South America, Colombia, Brazil. Who knows? We could see an upset. We could see another dominating run from Brazil. But should be a good one.
Especially because when they played each other at the group stage, it was a scoreless draw. So we really could go either way here. Yep. I wondered if they may not have fully pressed their foot on the gas in that group stage game in anticipation maybe of another meeting, maybe not wanting to show their cards too much.
We know.
It doesn't seem like something either team would do, but that's going to be appointment viewing and sort of a nice, continental tournament NWSL transition because we love chaos, which means there will be NWSL games this weekend and that Copa final.
It's a busy weekend.
Truly. But I mean, this has been the theme of the summer. So that's Saturday, August 2nd, Colombia versus Brazil at 5 p.m. Eastern. Mark your calendars for that.
Yeah.
All right. We've also got all of this conversation and fun and shenanigans happening on social, so make sure that you're following us at TA Fulltime on Instagram and TikTok. We post our episodes on YouTube as well. We are not on Blue Sky. I'm learning from my mistakes. But we also love reviews. So if you like what you see and hear, we would appreciate 5 stars. Feel free to leave a comment. We might read it on air on the show. But a massive thank you to everyone who has been writing with us up until this point. We so appreciate your support. All right, don't go anywhere because we need a quick break. We're tired and we're recovering. But when we come back, we are diving right back into the NWSL as we kick off the second half of the season. All right, Meg, let's just start from the top, get the people, situated as we ease deeper into the waters of this table. Kansas City Current, 33 points, 11 wins, 2 losses, 0 draws. They are cruising, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And yes, there's been a lot of summer moves, which we'll get to, but it's feeling like this point last season with the Pride, except of course it's the Current. Do you think anyone can catch them at this point?
I mean, I never want to say no, right? Like,
not in a league like this.
Yeah, not in a league like this. But I do think that they have shown, again, like they just have the depth. They have all of these pieces. They have that home field advantage. There are so many things that are going for them. And I think that they have just put together one of the best rosters in this league, right? And so right at the moment, and especially through the first half of the season, like they were not about to get caught. Now, I think what is interesting is when you get this big summer break and everybody gets a chance to like take a step back and reevaluate, you have a whole bunch of players coming in. We can't say like, listen, they're going to win the Shield, they're going to win the championship, because I expect like playoffs, you just cannot predict how anything is going to go.
Right.
But they are still very much my favorite for the NWSL Shield at this point. That doesn't mean that they might make lives. I think the challenge is like, they can't make life difficult for themselves.
That's usually the case with the top team, right? It's more about what they stand to lose, them losing to teams rather than teams beating them.
Right.
Yeah. I'm also thinking too about the summer break, which could go either way, right? I mean, you have goalkeeper Lorena. She is with Brazil right now with Copa. They didn't have too many other international players who needed to play in Euros or WAFCON. Tamerra Chawinga, she plays for Malawi, but they didn't qualify for that tournament. Yep. And so what I'm curious to see in a broad sense is like, to what extent did this long break help players who, had international duty and those who did not? Yep. And I think that's going to be another interesting factor for the Current. I can see it being beneficial that they were able to sort of maintain their core group. Even players like Debinha, Bia, Zanarado, they
I mean, for Debinha, the question is her health, right? Because that injury picked up right before the break. But that said, like, I don't think that's going to keep her out for the rest of the season. It didn't seem like it anyway. Right. But I mean, Debinha for me was in an MVP level conversation. So having her back and healthy is obviously like very important for this team, but having that long break and not feeling obligated to, rush her back for anything for a period of 4 or 5 weeks is very helpful.
Yeah. I think at least for the month of August, they are going to continue their form. That's sort of what I'm expecting, because the next topic we have to discuss, of course, are all of these splashy summer signings. Those players typically take a little while to get acclimated to the league, but let's go over a few of the ones that really made headlines. Mia Fishel going to Seattle Reign. Per Jeff Kassouf at ESPN, this contract was $2.5 million over the next 4.5 years, which is about $500K each year, including bonuses. This was huge. Yep. I spoke to Mia right before this signing was announced, and she is so juiced to be back on the West Coast. She's a California girl, but Seattle to, Southern California is very different from London, of course. But I think what stood out to me, and this aligns with the length of this contract, is she wants to build a home here. And she rightly, I think, pointed out that Seattle, over the many, many years that they've been a part of this league has really nurtured and grown leaders and stars. Of course, how can we not mention Megan Rapinoe in this conversation, but also players like Lou Barnes, Jess Fishlock.
Yep, totally.
She really has aspirations to step into those kinds of shoes with this team. And it's going to be really interesting to see how she does in the NWSL. I mean, she's had an unfortunate ACL injury that didn't allow her to play as many minutes as I think anyone expected or wanted at Chelsea. That's also kept her out of, peak form on a national team level. I'm sure, getting more minutes in order to contend for a spot on that 2027 World Cup roster was a huge part of this move too. But Seattle as a team, I think, is one of the ones that I am so excited about for the second half of the season.
Mia Fishel and Lynn Biondolo together. I'm ready to watch it.
Yep.
I'm ready to watch it. Mm-hmm. So, and the fact that Seattle is starting this weekend against Angel City, it's going to be a pretty tasty matchup this weekend. 100%. It is going to, and also it's NWSL After Dark. So
all the stars are aligning.
Yeah.
Just keep that heart rate going from last weekend pretty much, because we're going to keep it rolling.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the coast, I think if I had to name two players who performed, well, yes, they did perform, competed at the Euros, that I think NWSL fans are going to be most excited to see returning to the league or debuting in the league, Sofia Cantore, I think, is number one. I mean, she was phenomenal for Italy.
I mean, looking back at our Euros episode, right? Italy for me was the team that they went a lot further than I think I expected. Yeah. And Sofia Cantore, 100%. I think we have so much to talk about with the Washington Spirit, so I almost think we have to stick a pin in it, but it's going to be super fun. Mm-hmm. That's and she's, you know what, I think as an Italian, she's not going to get thrown by Washington DC in August. I want to point that out.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just watch a player on the field and you immediately think they would do well in the NWSL.
Yeah. Yep.
I was not super familiar with Cantore's game before the Euros, but it only took a few touches on the pitch before I'm like, yep, she'll be fine.
Yep.
I felt the same way actually about Sveindis Jónsdóttir, who is going, we're going to be hopping coast because she signed with Angel City before the start of the Euros. I spoke with her as well before the signing. She's also a player. I mean, Iceland national team, they've played a few games, many actually over the years against the U.S. women's national team, which is when I first learned about her. She's joining, of course, from Wolfsburg in the Frauen Bundesliga, and was drawn to the fact that Angel City, right before she signed Alex Strauss, who used to coach at Bayern. She's very familiar with him, of course. But between her pace, between her aggression, I think, especially as a forward, she's someone that I'm also very, very excited to see. And I know she's already gotten some minutes with Angel City. Again, you talk about combinations. Sveindis and Alyssa Thompson up top sounds terrifying to me, but in a way that
Alyssa Thompson also had a great little break of her own, right? So I think there's a lot. I know there are more signings, but let's stay on the Angel City thing because they have obviously had, I think, a very interesting break, because the other big addition for them is Evelyn Shores.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we want to talk about young talent coming in, Angel City is going to be, I think, one of the teams to watch this back half of the season, because, Mark Parsons coming in as sporting director, going out and signing a big name international coach. They've made some aggressive signings. I know, we've had Mark Parsons on the show. This is a long-term plan, but there is clearly a short-term mission of at least making it to playoffs in 2025. So, and the other fun news just this week, Allie Riley activated off the season-ending injury list, which also props to Allie Riley. I'm so excited for her. That's such incredible news, knowing everything that she's been through, this very terrible injury. But, Tamerra, what are you seeing for them this second half of the year? Because
I share your excitement for sure. I have to remind myself of the way Angel City began this season. I mean, they were ruining people's lives in a lot of ways. We talk about going down goals. We're talking winning away from home, thrillers. That Angel City Washington Spirit game I thought was phenomenal. They posed a lot of problems against the Orlando Pride, some top teams in the beginning of the season. Riley Tiernan, still, I think, Rookie of the Year contender. She's still in the wings. And when I think about those three up top, I'm getting goosebumps all over again.
Yep.
The question for me with Angel City has always been the consistency.
And the mentals, right? The mentals at the tail end of games.
Right.
And not giving up goals.
Yeah. Now, the nice thing is, I think that, of course, there was an emotional blow when we're talking about mentals with what happened to Savvy King also early on in the season. She thankfully is doing well, has spoken about her experience and how grateful she is to have had the medical support that she did from the club. So I'm hoping that between that and the break, that at least from a mental standpoint, the team is a little bit more fortified. I think they were, very understandably vulnerable for that sort of like middle to third part of the first half of the season. But I can see them being galvanized. I can see them being maybe refreshed and maybe like re-inspired by whatever Alex Strauss is bringing. He is a super intriguing figure. I want to learn more about him because something between the tats and these little anecdotes that I'm hearing from players on podcasts, it's like, tell me more, please.
Yeah, I think we got to get him on the show. I think that's on the to-do list.
Let's speak it into existence.
Yeah. The other team that I'm looking at for the second half of this year in terms of what are you going to accomplish, Racing Louisville FC. Because this is good start so far. They have, and I do also want to pause here for a second to express, again, my heartfelt sympathy to Bev Lionesses, who, again, has lost another pregnancy and has hopefully been able to take an advantage of the break and taken some time with her family. But this team and what they've done under Bev Lionesses, obviously very physical presence in the league, much to other teams.
Sometimes dismay, a little too physical. Red cards already,
right? But, this is a team that has never once made playoffs. I think this is definitely trending to be the year that looks like their best chance of breaking into the playoffs. And re-signed Taylor Flint to a contract extension. So, that is, to me, the player of Racing Louisville, right? But Tamerra, are you thinking, let's maybe pause for a second and be like, who's got that chance of being that team that, really sneaks in at the bottom?
It's so interesting to me. I'm looking at the table now. Racing and
Gotham right now is in 8th.
Yes, I was just about to say that. I am not even used to having language to speak to Racing and Gotham being not only so close on points, but not in the order that history would lead us to expect.
Right.
I mean, Racing has 20 points. Gotham has 18.
Yep.
Gotham is a whole other because on sort of the other end of the spectrum from Kansas City Current, they had a ton of players playing abroad in these continental tournaments, which raises a lot of questions about how they're going to return. I know we talked about Jess coming back quickly, but she's only one of several. They actually have had players on every continent.
Yes.
Europe, Africa, and South America.
Yeah.
Again, it could go either way.
Yep.
Angel City sitting in 11th. I can see them climbing a couple of spots.
They're on 15 points. They're only 3 spots out from
it's one game.
Yeah. So I think it is going to be really interesting of what Gotham needs to do in order to solidify, right? Move up that table a little bit, because when you look at it, they're on 18 points. Louisville's on 20, Seattle's on 21, Portland's on 22. Again, the pack in that middle chunk is really not that far off of each other. So, yes, we're saying Gotham's in 8th place, but they're, not that far away from potentially shooting back up to where we would traditionally think that they should be. But the question is, again, can Esther keep this goal-scoring form? And Katrine Berger had, the goalkeeping performance of, the save of Euros, right?
Truly.
And so can they keep that momentum? Are they tired, right?
Yeah.
Can you reintegrate them? Are you going to get more out of Roosevelt second half of the season for Gotham? Those are going to be all the moving pieces. And this is a team that has either gelled really well or hasn't. And so, that to me is kind of the big question facing Gotham in the second half of the season is, can you get this team to gel and get everybody in the right place mentally, keep them healthy? Because there is, I think, room for them to work their way up the table pretty easily if they get all those pieces right.
Totally. And I feel like I've said it could go either way many times this episode already. But, I'm thinking about Esther Gonzalez and how she left the Euros with not the medal that anyone wants, not the one that they entered the tournament hoping to get. And that can either, light someone up on some revenge tour energy for the second half of their club season, or it could mess with her confidence a little bit. I mean, even when you look at her performance in the Euros, toward the end of the tournament, she wasn't scoring at the same rate that she was at the beginning. And so what does that look like? And of course, you know, with strikers, this is always the case. Rarely is it that consistent unless you're Tamerra and Meg 2024 season. But that's what I'm going to be looking at. Esther is, you know, X-Dog factor is pretty much through the
charts.
roof. Yeah. So I'm leaning more toward the sort of revenge tour, angry,
I would
let
agree.
me catch up on the goals. I mean, she was, the fact that you can be a Golden Boot leader in your league and a Golden Boot winner in a continental tournament, you know, she's not going to get knocked down very easily. And of course, this hinges on more than just Esther, but I think she's a good example of sort of what the second half of a club season can look like off the back of a sort of interesting, you know, individual performance, phenomenal, but didn't get the result you wanted at your continental tournament with your national team. But, you know, I'm also thinking about players like Delphine Cascarino, France. Killing me every time, but I'm not going to stop hoping for the best for them. But she individually was phenomenal. She's also had an incredible NWSL season. Low-key, high-key, I think, MVP candidate. She's leading the league in assists, you know?
Yes. Yep.
And
she way up there for me, totally.
Right. So I can see the wave. She and Sofia Cantore are the ones that I think stand the greatest chance to sort of come back to the league, continuing the form that they had at the Euros. But again, it could go either way because it depends on fitness. It depends on rest. You know, I've been thinking a lot, Meg, about the conversation we had with Casey Stoney a month or two ago when she talked about sort of the emotional come down from a major tournament. And, you know, to come back into the league, yes, there is a mandatory week off that the players are given should they choose to take it. But a week is not that much when you consider the behemoth of emotions that you experience over the course of a WAFCON or a Euros.
Totally.
Okay, so we need to talk about Trinity Rodman.
Yeah.
We need to talk about the Washington Spirit at large. We mentioned Sofia Cantore. Of course, Yona Heraldez is no longer with the Spirit. Adrian Gonzalez, who was with the team before Yona arrived, is now back as their head coach, and very much a new era. I think it's important to point out that this is going to be different from that interim period, pre-Yona's arrival. This is now his team. He's going to be able to implement his vision. And I personally, Meg, feel really excited about this. I mean, he had a great run during his interim tenure. And now we've got fresh legs, new talent coming in, probably some like emotional care that needs to be addressed if it hasn't already, because, you know, Yona was the reason a lot of players signed with the Spirit and now he's gone. Yeah. But the fact that they are not getting a face that they've not, you know, that they're not familiar with, I think will benefit them, don't you?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I've been jokingly referring to this summer as the Washington Spirit's Uno Reverso, just because like they're doing the exact opposite flip last summer, right?
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, this is a coach that they know and trust and like, and having looked at his comments from his, you know, introduction press conference, which PS, just to like this already feels like a year ago, but when Washington Spirit like announced him, or like it was the happy birthday post that they posted and he literally was in all white and they had like given him this fuzzy white background. It was like, is he dead?
Oh, I need to see that. Oh, yeah. There was a little spell where the graphics were not giving the emotions that I remember that.
Yeah. Anyway, I just flashed in my brain and I was like, oh yeah, that happened. But with Adrian, like, I do think that, you know, he said, I want to know the players as humans, and that allows you to push them in new and tougher directions. And so I think that's a really encouraging thing to read from this person who has been in the mix but hasn't been, you know, empowered to be the number one guy, right? And so obviously there is some trust. You know, folks from the Spirit side, when Yona was making the move to Lyon, said, we only did this because we knew that we had Gonzalez here and like we trusted him, everybody likes him, like there is this innate relationship already existing. So I do think from a transition point of view, as absolutely absurd as the Washington Spirit's coaching trend over the past couple of years has been, this is, I think, a different vibe compared to all of the other transitions. So like good news there. The other, yes, we got to talk about Trinity Rodman, because this has been the thing everybody's been waiting for. She had some comments coming back in. I mean, the one that obviously is really remarkable is the fact that she straight up said, like, I was trying to gaslight myself about how much pain I was in every day, right? Saying, like, I was fine every day when it wasn't. And the fact that she has apparently been able to address kind of this root cause and say, okay, now I'm not in pain all the time. So, like, what are we going to see out of a Trinity Rodman that is not in pain?
Right.
Hopefully, like, a different level, but also there's always going to be a part of me, like, every time she gets tackled, which was already happening, of just being like, oh, no.
Totally. I mean, I was joking with our colleague Melanie Anzide about this. You know, she's Argentinian, so I can always talk all things messy with her.
Yeah.
But listening to Trinity's comments, I was really struck by, and I don't mean to imply that she was ever immature, but there was a certain new degree of maturity that I heard in her comments, specifically when it comes to thinking about her physical body as one of the best players in the world and what it means to be playing with this injury and how that might be affecting the decisions that she makes during the game. I mean, she said something to the effect of, you know, I'm not going to be throwing my body around necessarily the way that I used to. I'm still going to be the same Trinity, but I have to think differently now that I'm aware of the sort of limitations of my body. And ostensibly as someone who wants to have as long of a career as they want. And I remember joking to Melanie, like, oh, does this mean that Trinity is going to start doing like the Messi walk a little bit more during games in terms of, I mean, she has energy in spades, but it's not necessarily about conserving energy, but that decision making, I think, is going to be different. And I am really excited about that because to me, that means that she's thinking in the long term. And that, to me, is sort of where the maturity comes from. So I am very excited for her. She seems happy. She's obviously in love. She's been, but that can change a player too. And I'm very excited to see her back. I know I speak for probably everyone who follows this league because she brings the vibe. She's got the pink braids. She's got the trin spin, the nutmegging. Like, I don't think any of that flair that she's been known for is going to go away. But I think her mindset is changing, and I think that that's a good thing. All right, before we get out of here, let's pan out a little bit, Meg. We've been talking about a lot of sporting, on-the-field stuff, player-oriented, but of course, the game is never just about that. What is one thing that you hope to see this league achieve in the second half of the season that does not have to do with what we're seeing on the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the television numbers for Euros were all incredible. And so now the pressure has always been on for the NWSL to crack 1 million viewers for the championship, like in a real fashion and not in like a lead-in television fashion. But now like that pressure is on. They've got to be ready. They've got to be able to meet this moment. And if they do not hit 1 million this year, then that to me is a serious problem. So I think hopefully seeing better marketing, you know, the fact that they've lost their CMO now, gives me some pause, right?
It's not
like
funny, but you're saying marketing and it's like, and they also don't have a CMO. It's a little bit funny.
They don't have a chief marketing officer, but they got to hit 1 million viewers. So like that for me is going to be one of the front office sort of storylines that I'm watching heading into the tail end of the season.
That's a good one. Yep. Mine has to do with a conversation that we have long had and will continue to have. And it has to do with neutrality, or at least the illusion of neutrality that I still think the league, unfortunately, is subscribing to when it comes to social justice issues, when it comes to what it means to speak up for and to protect marginalized players, whether they be not U.S. citizens, whether they be trans, non-binary, whether they be Black, of color. I think that for too long, the league has believed that as long as they say nothing and don't like move even an eyebrow, then no one will notice them, sort of in the like maelstrom of discourse that we're having around all of these issues. And I continue to be fascinated by the sort of paradox that, I mean, we're talking about wanting to crack 1 million viewers. They want to grow, but they also want to not be seen. And you're going to get to a point where you got to choose one or the other. I think we all want growth, which means you got to start speaking up. There is a lot of legislation coming out soon around trans athletes and where what sort of spaces they can access. I want to hear the league take a stance on that. We have long had conversations around immigration and ICE raids. I want to hear strong stances about that from the league, not just the Players Association. Shout out to them, of course. But I'm looking for less neutrality in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I will be very curious to see if that happens.
And we'll be right here to discuss anything that comes up. But for now, that's our show. We're probably going to go take naps soon, because it's just been that type of season. It's been that type of summer. But thank you, as always, for listening. If you didn't know, The Athletic has partnered with Yahoo Sports to deliver the best coverage of women's sports, not just soccer, that you can find on the Women's Sports Hub at sports.yahoo.com/women-sports. The link for that, of course, is in the show notes. This has been Full Time. I'm Tamerra Griffin. Like I said, I'll be napping, hydrating. I probably need to do a face mask at some point, but you'll see what I'm up to on Instagram and Blue Sky.
I'm Meg again. I will be dying at Virtue Field this weekend in amongst the NWSL games. You can also find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. And Full Time does not happen without our lovely podcast producer, Theo Lloyd Hughes, our video producer, Leah Griffin, and our executive producer, Emily Olson, who is finally on vacation after all these summer tournaments. So hopefully Emily is enjoying her vacation and not listening to the show right at the moment. But yes, enjoy the chaos, and we will be back with you next week.